Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be modifying our PayPal right now. Before we had it so that we were using the NGX PayPal plugin for Angular, and it was doing client-side authorization. I really want this to do server-side authorization because I don't want there to be a chance of a payment going through and then the transaction not registering on the server. So we're going to be implementing that this morning. Good morning, Boogie Wagon. So I did spend a little bit of time here looking at the Google or the documentation here for how to do this from the implement a checkout server integration. And essentially what we need to do is implement this button, this one, onto our form. Now it's in JavaScript and we're working in Angular. So this is the thing that I've done off the air just because I wasn't sure how long it was going to take. And if I look at my cart now, I've commented out my NGX PayPal here, so I'm no longer using it. And I can actually probably remove that module from my app. What? I don't understand what the problem is. We can get rid of this one, NGX PayPal, and then also this one down here. And now back in my cart, if I look at what I've done here, I can remove that. And instead, what I'm using is I have a PayPal load and an add script false. And then here I've created an object, which is what I'm going to use as my PayPal config object. And I've passed in my sandbox key, the style of the button. And then this is the action that will occur when I click payment. And then after that happens, we run authorize, which will return a post to my server. And at the moment, because I don't have that implemented, what we're using is a I don't know if you guys have heard of, it's called request bin. You just go like that, request one of these URLs, and we can just post to it. And it's going to include a payment ID and a payer ID. And then from that, we need to invoke an HTTP request on the server. So one thing before I go further is I want to look up, there's a PayPal .C# SDK. Using the OAuth token that can be used with each call, you will need the OAuth token. Make an API class, make an API call. Seems like it might just be easier though to... Here you go. This is what I was looking for. Install PayPal, modify it to your WebAPI, web config. Then the code is here. This is to make an API call. Payer, new payers, PayPal, and your transactions. And then your redirects. So you could either do it this way. Hey there, Angry and 13, how are you doing? Or we could do it over here, not using that, where we would just set up on our API and endpoint, and then we would retrieve the client ID and secret, and then we would execute the payment using a post here. So I think this is easier. So the next thing that I want to do is when I create this page, I want to implement after view checked. and that adds ng after view checked, where here I check to make sure that I'm only adding it one time, and then I add this PayPal script, and then I'm going to declare outside of my component a PayPal of any. And so in that, I'm rendering a button with the properties that I set above at this container. And then I have a setting that it's been loaded. And then here, this is I'm doing good. How about you? I'm doing well. This is the add PayPal script, which creates a script element and then adds the JS to it. And then when it loads it, it resolves it, and then it appends it. That's it now. So when I run this now, and we look at the back end and run that, I feel like I have too many windows open. Just a second. This is the one I want. Okay. And now I'll go to my local host, log in. There we go. Everything should load, and it does. Good. If I look at my let's go to add a currency type, and we can see we have our PayPal, which loaded successfully. And then I can run this through, which I can't show on screen. And this is going through the sandbox. Okay. Now it says that there was an error with the purchase, which is what we're expecting. And that's because I haven't done anything yet with the onAuthorize. All I did was post here. But I feel like we need a then. So here we're going to do an alert which says this is going to make a post now to my, we just did it to the post bin. So the request bin, so that's over here. If I was to refresh on this, here I can see the post with the information that I need from it. So now what I can do is create in my services class, I'll make a new PayPal service in here. And what this is going to do is I want to first on the WebAPI, I need to create a controller on here, which is called a PayPal controller. And on this, I want to have one method. I don't want to do it like this. I can add a new controller with read-write actions called a PayPal controller. Try that again. All right, whatever. We'll just duplicate this one and call it a PayPal controller. Like that. And it's a PayPal controller like that. And then I can close that and reopen it. I think there's something wrong right now with my back end. Let me reopen it. There we go. And what I want to do here is I want to have a function called a public asynchronous task called a request payment. And in this, we're just going to pass a query string, so I don't think I need anything else. So if I look at this, I can do a var context equals http context dot request dot query string, and we're going to pass in a payment ID and then a .NET C# get ASP.NET. We want to get query string parameter. In core. You can use from query to bind a model to the query string. Easy enough. So we do a from query name is equal to payment ID. And we're going to say that that's a string payment ID. And then the same thing again. For the payer ID. And then all I want to do is halt it here as a console.log, as a console.writeLine hello. So we'll lock it. And then I want to do a HTTP get. And I want to do a route is equal to request payment. We just want this to go directly to my PayPal controller. So now when I hit it, okay, we're going to use Postman for a second. And this is on http:// localhost 54494. And then I'm inside of PayPal, and then request payment. And I should probably pass in those two parameters. So we want to do question mark payment ID is equal to that, and payer ID is equal to that. Unauthorized. Which makes sense. Try it again. There we go. And I got my payment ID and my payer ID. Okay, so that's good. And now what I want to do is I need to make a transaction with this, and then I need to return the transaction. I could do it with SignalR if I want. When I look at my request payment, it has to post here. But when does it post the transactions? That's here. So before I even initiate this, when I do the payment, I want to send over a purchase to my server before I do this, so that the server is ready for it. So the first thing that you want to do is I want the server to create the transaction. So I can do that by if I look at my hub, we have like a request create purchase here. So here we want to do a this dot hub service dot request purchase. So let's do that. Then you're going to need to put your OAuth token that you have on this on your request. Yeah. So if I look at my hub service, I need to have a create purchase here. And I need to have a const here for my purchase, which is a I purchase, which is equal to, and in this it needs to have purchase method It needs to have a subtotal. Didn't I already do this somewhere? No. Because before I was creating that purchase over here. This is where the code is at. This creates the purchase. So let me just put this in a function called this.createPurchase. Okay. Right there. Okay, so that'll create a purchase based on what we already know. And I want to do this, and then when I return it, I want to change this, and I'm going to put a actions as of type of any. So I can do this dot actions equals actions. And then I can create the purchase. And then when that's done, this is the next bit. The next thing I want to do is the this dot actions dot payment, and we're going to create the transactions for it. And then when that's done, it's going to do this on authorize. And then when that's done, we want to receive one more event, which is called a purchase successful. So on my hub service, I want to have a get purchase confirmed, which is a receive purchase confirmed. And then a receive purchase confirmed. And then we'll add it in right here. Create purchase. And this is going to be called a, oh, I went too far. Receive purchase. You're going to have a receive purchase confirmed, which is a like that. Okay, the next thing is my, over here, this, when we're posting to this endpoint, from my front end, we'll do that. Hey there, ThinkBot Labs. How are you doing? Welcome to the chat. Let me put this in the globals. Just a second. And we're going to say that this is my PayPal server create payment URI is equal to this. And then I can just do a this.global service.that. Okay. How are you today, ThinkBot Labs? Okay, I think we're ready to give it a try. I can close that one up. I can close that one up. We'll log out. Log in. Okay, all that worked. Now I'll do a purchase. That looks right. I want to do a payment. Just a second. Still waiting on it. What's going on here? Let me try that again. That was weird. Pretty good. Finished waking up and grinding on some Path of Exile. Back to work on my main project. What's Path of Exile? Never heard of it. So now it's never authing because when we click the payment, it should be creating this purchase. Which should be invoking it on the hub. Here. So we'll try it again. Where'd you go? Okay. Add that. Do that. Good. That worked. We're going to create this purchase here with my purchasable item JSON. And then I'm going to pass back receive purchase. which is there. Which should create this transactions. Now here I'm going to do a console.log this.actions. Hey there, Gandhi RAC, how are you? I'm trying to get ready to do the release. I'm putting PayPal on the client side right now. It says that didn't take. So why wouldn't that work? I should be holding that reference to actions. Been out since 2013, but they released expansion pretty frequently. That's cool. Okay, when I look at this one again, I do have that create component there. And it should be creating the transactions. So when you're creating this purchase, is it clearing the cart? I don't think so. Let me just move this up here again. Okay, we'll try that. All right, so that took. Okay, I'm going to do my payment. Now it says there was a problem. It couldn't find 54494 request payment. Because that's a post. Right? Not a get. Oh, smooth. Well, I tested it with a get, but I think it's supposed to be a post. Let's try it again. Okay, that worked. Okay, that time it did work, and I've received a no payment ID or anything, but what I did get on my payload is a request which has a query string of nothing. Is it in content? Content length. So let me do this as a request bin one more time, because I definitely have something wrong here. Which is back over here. And when I give it a run again, and over on the front end, we purchase something, create the purchase. Looks good. Make a payment. Check back on my request. Here we go. It was in fact a post. With XWWW form encoded content. So we want to read XXX, what do you call that? WWX uncoded. C# request. Post is this. You need to send the form as not value equals. What? Right? Yeah, I know model binding. Let's try this. Form data collection form. And then we'll use a var payer payment ID is equal to form.get payment ID. And then back over on the front end, I'm going to put this back. Try it again. Do a purchase, map it. Pass the payment. I never got a post, did I? Posted with a bad request. Okay, so let's try that. We'll make a new model in here called a PayPal request payment, PayPal payment request, which is just going to have two properties in it. The string for the payment ID and the string for the client, for the payer ID. We'll try it again. Okay, and it kicked through, but I never got the request. Let me do a log out and a log back in. Try that one more time. Bad request. Okay, let me try adding one thing on this, which is the from body line. We'll try it one more time. Okay, undo a purchase. Run it through. Bad request. Back to this way. One more try. I wonder why it's doing that. Okay, we got it. And now if I look in my context, under the request, it has content length and a body. Does it have a form? So we could do a var whatever equals a request dot form. Let's just use that. And I want to run it again. Sumolen, I don't even know what that means. How are you doing? Welcome. And that failed on me. Read raw body request C# core. Okay, so what do? We read it by, this is what I was looking for. Okay, so what we do is using a var reader, it's a new stream reader, and we want to do it for my request.body into encoding.utf8. And then here I want to do var string whatever equals await my reader dot read to end asynchronous. And let's see what we get there. I bet you that'll work. Nope, that didn't take. And it's not raw body, it was form encoded. Okay. I just don't understand why I can't get it. I will get it. Okay, we're just going to try this. Try it again. I want to add this and we'll try it. And I'm going to add in here this as a post on this kind of data. We're going to say it's client ID or payer ID and then also payment ID. And I'm firing this from Postman. Content in our case is null. But my form collection has 2 files in it. Which is there. So it's in the store. So it's your context request.form equals HTTP context dot request dot form dot try to get value. So we're going to say if we can get my value of payer ID and out var payer ID, and we can also do this again for the payment ID. And then we'll just do this nonsense. Try it again. How to make that keyboard screen display? It looks interesting. That's a Node.js little applet. And now my payer ID. The debugger is unable to evaluate this expression. We'll run it again. And I want to do a watch on this and a watch on this. And it's because it says it's a string values. So I actually want this to be a system var whatever equals payer ID dot of the first one. And then this one to be of the second one. Try it again from Postman. There it is. My string content. We're finally receiving it now. So this is my payer ID array and my parent ID array. It's like this, and then this. And this one is my payer ID finally, and this one is my payment ID. Now we're not completely done because we need to add on here the authorize. And I want to make sure that my headers here I think I need an interceptor. I'm just looking at how to do this with an interceptor. So I think I can just do, just for temporary use, actions dot request header set. And I want to do something like authorization. And I think it's a bearer or something like that, right? Let me double check that. I want to get my token here, so I should be able to get the OAuth service and inject it. And now I should be able to do a this.oauthservice.access get access token. And isn't it a bearer plus that? So now, if we try it again, How you doing there, Fallen Hope? And I run this. Cart TS unexpected token, it's saying. Where is it saying that? Okay. Interesting that that changes width. That's something interesting. Let's go ahead and make a purchase. Can't have any content on this thing to make it work. And it never, I don't know if it ever did anything here. So in my here, I want to do a console.log this.oauth service.get access token. This thing's using bearer tokens, right? Yeah. So I'm going to run it again to get my token. Makes the order. Okay, that didn't return a string. If I look back here where we have the OAuth service, it's as a function, derpy. We'll try it again. Make the payment. Okay, so I see it. Now it would have tried to make that call. I want to add in here that the authorization is just this. It says unauthorized. If I added bearer, that worked. Okay. So authorization. I want to see if that actually works. Console.log actions.request.headers. And we'll also do a console.log actions.request. Okay, I never saw it go through, did I? I don't understand. It's not telling me why it's erroring. Make sure that this thing has headers on it. Okay, so now when I look at this, the second one is undefined. The first one is not. Headers are equal to void, it says. So can I just make new headers here? So can I do this again and then set these equal to a new array of objects where we have authorization and then we have bearer plus this .auth service .get access token. And then we'll comment this again and try it. It just doesn't give me enough stuff to work with in the documentation for server side. Okay, so that's successfully worked. I set the authorization header. Hey there, one more commit. How are you doing? Welcome to the channel. If you have any questions, what I'm working on, please don't hesitate to pop them into the chat. Appreciate the support. I mean, that looks like, oh. If I took this over here and I dumped it in and tried it, and then I tried to remove these things, that worked fine. So now the only problem is that we're getting the bearer is like a string or something. So we want to say manually set header in Angular CLI. So could we do, hey there, Shady3TV, welcome. How are you doing? Could I do a let headers equals a new headers? And then do a headers.append. And then we did an authorization and then a bearer. And I add this .oauthservice.getAccessToken. And then I want to set this headers equal to headers. And we'll make that a const. And then we'll output it and then we'll try to fire it. Okay, let's give it a whirl. Okay, it set the headers that time. Can I pass more stuff in here? I might be able to. I might be able to pass the whole order in there. Set unauthorized, so it never appended this. Why wouldn't it have appended that? Why wouldn't it have appended that? Why didn't that work? Not bad. Eagerly waiting for UPS to deliver my new mic. Really have a time coming with a interesting way to respond. What's popping? This is killing me here. So we want to do PayPal API add headers to the request. Here we go. Here we go. Yes. Okay, so it looks like I do this. And then I do another one where I do my headers and I just do a authorization and then I do my bearer plus my this dot OAuth service dot get access token. Let's try to add one. Undefined. So we can say let access token equals this. Yeah, I know. I can't show it. It's not working, though. It almost is working. That means it worked. And there's our payer ID and our payment ID. So now, I wonder if I can get more data out of this. If I was to see if I can add my order as a order is a this dot cart service dot order dot purchase, and we want to do a JSON dot stringify, and then I'm also going to try to get one out here for order. Let's try that. Does sound like a pyramid scheme. Hey, we'll log out, we'll log in. We're just about done with it now, though, because I'm now passing all my information that I want. And there it is. My order array is undefined. So it didn't pass that, did it? Hold on. I'm going to do this as a const order string equals this. And then I want to do a console.log my order string. And then I want to add in my order string here. We'll try it one more time. Log out, log in. We add the payment. There it is. Order array is undefined still. So it does have 3 keys. Order is undefined. And then it is undefined. So in here, when I did my create purchase, this happens initially right here, which should add this onto my hub. I don't want to do this. I want to add this onto my cart. So if I open this one up, this one is to set the purchase. I can get rid of this, and I'm going to call this a create purchase. And then we want another one in here called create purchase confirmed, where we do that. So in here we can move this to my cart service, where we have create purchase. We can get rid of that. And then we can do that, and we need to have my global service, which we can just inject. There we go. And we want to add that onto the cart, so it's this dot purchase is equal to purchase. Now if I look at this, we need to have 2 different kinds of this. We need to have an I purchase order, and then we need to have a I purchase order, an I purchase confirmed. And this one's going to have a purchase order on it. And then we want to have a just a second. No, I don't think we need this. Like that. And this purchase is an iPurchase order. Okay, so now this is going to be a this.cart service dot create service create purchase. So back up here, it's going to be this.cart service dot create purchase. And then here, this is going to be your order string. And you're going to submit it. Okay, so we can run it again. Do a purchase. Says undefined. Where are you using this? When we create the PayPal transaction, I don't want to get rid of that. So now it should work. Good. So that time I got my string. So I know that I got a purchase here. Then we're going to create a payment, which will be here. And then we need to make sure that this fired on the back end. Okay, over here, I look at this in my order. We, in fact, can pass whatever we want. So that's great. But I don't have the context ID. Of this user right now. So if I wanted to do a PayPal actions.request.post, and then I did a response or something down here. But the problem is that now I'm out of scope. So this dot but it's not letting me access any of my variables, right? Well, access token. So it'll let me do that one. So if I did a I want to do a router. Then can't I use it in here as just a router dot navigate by URL? So where do I redirect this? Didn't I save that code? So now that I've created the purchase, it's on my purchase subscription. Which is here. We subscribe my data. So I don't have anything in here. So this is now going to be a purchase confirmed or whatever. And I want to do a because now we have the finalized purchase from the server and we just want to navigate to checkout. And this is going to be a new cart, which is a cart service. And I want to do a cart dot create purchase confirmed, where I pass in my purchase. Let's try it now. We're not sending a response here. So I'm just going to respond with we need to make a new data access layer here. And I need to deserialize that. But for now I can just make a new response object here called a PayPal payment response, which will just have a bool called success. And I want to do this as a PayPal payment response. And then I want to return a new one of these with this is true. It looks like I could probably get rid of my purchase subscription now. So let me make a purchase here. Okay, we got my payment, my order. We get my response here. It brought me back, and it says it's been successful. Okay. So now it's actually time to do something on the server side. So if I look at here, a model for my order. We have this purchase create request. So I want to say var purchase create request equals a JSON convert dot deserialize object to a purchase create request of my order, which I'm going to rename order JSON. And then what I want to do is I need to have my data access layer in here. So AI open DJ radio data access layer, or whatever that's called. Like that. And now I want to do a await data access layer dot create purchase asynchronous, which needs to have my create request, which is this. And then you also need to get your username. Which I can think we can get from the... I don't have to hit the user info client, do I? I should be able to get this just... We'll just say GUID.NewGUID for now. And then when you're done with this, you're going to return a purchase VM. And otherwise, you're going to return null. Now, one thing you want on this is on my purchase entity, I need to have a prop int string for my payer ID. Who is that? Mysterio0808. How are you doing? Thank you so much for that follow. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them into the chat. And then the other one here is called a purchase ID, right? Payment ID and a pay your ID. And we'll also put each one of those on the DTOs here. And then the, oops, before I forget, we wanted to have one more, which is a has been charged, which will be a bool, and then a was charged accepted, like that. So we'll put that here, and then on the DTOs over here for purchase, and then on the view models for purchase, and then on the request for purchase, create request. And then back over here on purchase order, payer ID doesn't matter, payment ID doesn't matter. On this one, we want to have a was charged accepted, which is a boolean, and a has been charged, which is a boolean. Okay. So now that you have those, we can say my purchase create request dot payment ID is equal to payment ID. My purchase create request dot payer ID is equal to payer ID. Okay. Like that. And my purchase has to come from my user. I meant to take a look at that, didn't I? So if I just send this request over, and I look at my locals here for this request, no, just user, and I look at my claims here, I should have one with sub. So if I look at my controller base, I want to have one here called protected virtual void called get user ID asynchronous. And all I'm going to do here is my request.headers. No, it's my http context.user.claims. And we want to get the one which is called sub. So we want to get the one which is dot first, or we want to do a to array or something like that. We could do a to list, and then I can get the one which is dot first or default s, where my s dot type is equal to sub dot value. And we'll return this as a get user ID like that. As a good. So this is going to be my var ASP.NET user ID equals this. And then I want to do await my service, my data access layer dot read application. This is an asynchronous virtual task of a GUID, because now I need to get my var user application user equals await my data access layer dot read application user by their ASP.NET user ID, and then I want to return my application user dot ID, and this is going to be a try and a catch, and then we can do a return a GUID dot empty. And I'll add on here a new controller called a base controller. And I can just take this and move it over here and make this one a abstract class like that. And it needs to have two things in it, a CTOR for my open DJ radio data access layer called my data access layer. And then a protected read-only open DJ radio data access layer. So this is a base controller. Which is a base data access layer. We don't need the paths anymore. Don't need that anymore. So now, after I deserialize everything, I need to get my user. My data access layer dot read application user from the await get user ID asynchronous. And we could actually do this one step easier by adding another method here, which is just called get user asynchronous, passing in a application user VM, and then we can just return this one. And then this one we can just say await get user asynchronous. And this one's just going to be my await my user.id. So when I look at this create purchase, I want to make a second one. And I'll look up here at this, and I want to have two of these, one called create purchase and one called create purchase confirmed. Now I don't need that, I'll just have the one. And now in my PayPal controller, I need to have my service here, which is a open DJ radio service called service. Like that. Okay. And now in my service, I want to have something here called it's going to be called a task called execute PayPal transaction. And what I want to do here is pass in a purchase VM called a purchase. And then we're going to have this as a bool. So we'll have a public virtual asynchronous task of a bool called execute PayPal transaction of a purchase VM called a purchase. And in this, we're going to be using a var HTTP client equals a new HTTP client. And now I need to create this is the first post, which is to set up the URL. So the first one is that it's well, this is very poor. Okay, now I need to call the V1 Payments Payment REST API. So to do that, I'm going to do HTTP client dot send. It's going to be a post asynchronous. And it needs to be to the URL of the https://api.sandbox.paypal.com/v1/payments/payment. And we're going to say that this is get PayPal transaction, get PayPal purchase number, like that. And in this, we need to pass a object here. Which I'm going to say is a PayPal purchase number request. And in this, we're going to have a couple of things. The first one is a auth, like that, which will be a public class called auth. And in this one, we're going to have a prop string for the user and a prop string for the pass. And then we're going to have another one here called the public class body class, which needs to have a string called intent. And then this one needs to have another class in it called payer class, which needs to have in it a prop string called payment method, which is actually a JSON property called property name equals payment method. And we need to have here a payer class called a payer. And if I was to look at my code in my cart service right now, you're doing this here. And what you have is you have a PayPal transaction. No, it says that you want this. So I want to look up V1 payments payment. And I'm going to look at all the documentation on this. So I've got this. Hey there, Majestic Mac. How are you doing? Welcome to the channel. If you have any questions what I'm working on, don't hesitate to pop them into the chat. Okay, so this is my request. So I'll just move this in here as a edit, paste special, JSON as classes. Like that. And we want to capitalize all of these. Actually, I don't care. We'll leave them like that. Because I don't even want to mess with this thing. I want it to be exactly right. And then I want to have a PayPal. Hey, Will Airways. How are you doing? Welcome to the channel. Purchase number response. And I can just pass in this. Okay. So what it's going to do is it's going to post out here to this payment URL. Because your create payment endpoint will give me back an ID and the transactions, and it set it all up. And then when I actually call it, I need to pass in the payment ID. Yeah, and then I need to call the execute. So here we need to do a new, and my content is going to be var request is equal to a new PayPal purchase number request. And these two need to be in the request and the response. Okay. Like this. Now I need to fill the object up. So my intent is sale. The, well, okay, the interesting. It's like it didn't have all of the request. The documentations do not match here. But I think it's this one. So in this, we need to have a auth. This is all in the body. Actually, I think I just call the execute payment. And your payment ID, payer and payment ID, payer and payment ID. This one is the payments. Payment. Man. So we want to do payments execute or something like that. And we want to pass in the payment ID. So we'll do a post here. I want to have the payment ID, which should be in here, and the payer ID. So it's to here. And then we're going to have my payment ID, which is purchase.paymentID \execute. And it needs to have the following object. Okay, so you're executing it, and all we're really passing in is the payer ID now. So let me change this to be a PayPal purchase request. Which is only going to be this. And then we want to have a PayPal purchase response. Which is this one. No, Angular CLI. How goes it, Matt Dev? And then over in the data access layer, in the services, we're going to make this a PayPal purchase request, which only needs to have a payer ID, which is my purchase.player ID. And then now we need to post it. So I need to turn this into HTTP content. So post object as JSON C#. And now what I can do is I can say new string content of my JSON convert.serialize object of my request to my encoding.utf8 passing application/JSON. And we're going to get var response equals await that. And then I got response dot content dot read as string. So we're going to say var content equals this. And we'll await, and then I'm just going to try to deserialized content here, and we're going to do a JSON convert.deserialize object of type PayPal purchase response of my content. And then I'll just return true. Execute PayPal transaction. So now back over here in my PayPal controller, I can do an if my await my services dot execute PayPal transaction of my what we're calling a purchase create request. Then we can create this purchase and return it. Let's try it again. Looks good. Give it a run. Okay, we're going to go ahead and log out and log in. We issue a purchase. Okay, it fires. We get my purchase create request here, which doesn't have those two yet, but it does have my purchasable item. Looks good. We now execute my post. We get my content. Auth failed because it's missing the auth header. Okay, so to add the auth header, I want to look up PayPal execute transaction auth header. It's telling me that I need to get an access token. So we can do that. Let me try it. From Postman. Okay, so it wants me to have on this header called accept application/JSON. Accept language is English US. Then we have a client ID and a secret. And then a grant type, which is client credentials. Okay, so I need to get an access token here. And I don't want to show that on screen. So I've been going for 2.5 hours. So let me take a little break. I want to get some lunch. And then when we come back, I think we will just pick up here and we'll be doing some graphic work to get this thing online. So thanks for staying with me. I will see you guys in just, let's say, 2 hours. So I'll be back here at 2 o'clock. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you in just a little bit. Did my overlay disconnect? Seems like my overlay disconnected. Okay then, well, we'll go out this way then. All right, guys, I will see you a little bit later.